So the love affair between Bibi Netanyahu, Donald Trump, and the Israeli apartheid government has decided to take it up a notch today. Because Donald Trump has decided to just give Bibi Netanyahu an early Christmas present or a early Hanukkah present. Is that what that would be? Well, Trump is Christian, but he might as yeah, I don't even know. Yeah. Hanukkah. Well, shit. I mean, as many presents as Trump has given Netanyahu, it might as well be Hanukkah. Give him a new present every day, it seems like. But Sophia, can you go ahead and enlighten us about this?
Yeah, this new, this is from a mid-press article. It's titled, "With Trump's Help, Israel Chooses Short-Term Land Grabs Over Long-Term Legitimacy." So, as Israel prepares for another round of elections, the Trump administration seems poised to give Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu an invaluable campaign contribution by providing a green light for Israel to declare sovereignty in Area C of the West Bank. While this is undoubtedly a short-term victory for Netanyahu, it will kill any argument Zionists may have in claiming that Israel has legitimacy, or in other words, has a right to exist. So that's pretty troubling, because that kind of sounds like it's not necessarily election interference, but it shows extreme favorability. It's not really just like, oh, you know, we're partners in terms of diplomacy, but this is literally the United States giving a green light to furthering Israel's occupation of Palestine.
Yeah, very similar to the Golan Heights situation in Syria.
Yeah, it's very troubling. So throughout the article, it kind of talks about the Oslo Accords, how they were like a farce. It didn't really give the Palestinian people much of anything. And it also talks about a Palestinian writer who said that all these peace talks weren't actually about peace talks. They were more about capitulation of the Palestinian people to Israel. But probably the most important part here, as the elections unfold, we hear the heads of Israel's two main parties, Likud and Blue and White, talk of expanding settlements in Judea and Samaria, what was formerly known as the West Bank, fighting terrorism, destroying Hamas in Gaza. Those who still refer to themselves as Zionist left continue to argue for a compromise with the Palestinian Authority based on some version of the two-state solution, and they are considered a delusional fringe. Palestinian lawmakers who run in the joint list also call for a two-state solution, as well as equal rights for Palestinian citizens of Israel. Probably the only distinction that exists between pre-1967 Israel and post-1967 Israel is that Palestinians who live within the pre-1967 boundaries have quasi-Israeli relationship. And it also goes on to talk about Rashida Tlaib and Ilhan Omar and Israel preventing them from visiting the country because they're anti-Semitic, but then they don't actually, obviously, ban people who are legitimately anti-Semitic from entering.
Yeah, so I'm glad you brought that point up, because not only does this surprising or unsurprising, I should say, coincide with Netanyahu's election coming up, and he is actually, his popularity is dwindling, and it has been. A lot of people think that he is not legitimately winning his elections, that there's a lot of election rigging taking place in Israel. But I also don't find it a coincidence that right before Netanyahu's election, he does something so bold as to ban Ilhan Omar and Rashida Tlaib from visiting Palestine. Like, because you know that you're mostly going to get negative backlash from that. It is almost like an admission of guilt, right? Because even when he was finally going to let Rashida Tlaib visit her grandmother, who lives in Palestine, but because Palestine is under Israeli occupation, it's considered part of Israel. He said, well, you can go, but you can't talk about anything you see in Palestine, like any of the negative bad deeds that Israel has been responsible for, like any of the I mean, lack of running water. The settlements don't have Second Amendment, what we would consider Second Amendment rights yet. Israel within the borders do have Second Amendment rights. How the IDF can basically run up in your house at any time for any reason. I mean, the list really does go on. The subpar living conditions, how the Palestinian government is really not allowed to be recognized. We automatically conflate them with quote unquote Hamas. And of course, that is done to try and delegitimize them and consider them a terrorist organization rather than a legitimate government. Because if people always say, why don't they build a legitimate government? They're not allowed to. I don't know if y'all know that. They're not allowed to. Because then you would also be considered a sovereign state, and you would also be given a seat at the table in the United Nations, and then all hell would really break loose. So they're not just the United States, just in Israel with the help and the backing of the United States disallows it. And so when you're thinking about it from that perspective, it really looks like this is all to make sure that Netanyahu, Donald Trump's clear best friend in foreign policy, maintains office. And it's weird that they're going through these strides to try to increase his popularity, because maybe this is showing that he isn't as likely to win this election as he has been to win other elections. I'm also kind of weirded out how he's allowed to be president for this long and with this many terms.
And it's also troubling too that, I mean, at this point, it just seems like the amount of land that they were given originally is never enough. And I think that's the whole point of this article too, and saying that it's kind of delegitimizing their claims to legitimacy, because it's kind of just like, well, we're never going to be satisfied with what you gave us. We're just going to continue to expand and expand and expand further.
Yeah.
So, and even banning Omar and Tlaib is not helping them either. I mean, they're being way too extreme to the point that people are going to start recognizing that this is how they are in terms of their occupation, and it's not a liberal democracy. Yeah.
Yeah. How can you be like you're literally an apartheid state, bro?
Yeah.
Like, how the hell do they keep claiming democracy? Well, they're the only democracy in the Middle East. I'm like, bruh, Iran is more of a democracy. Like, Iran's a democracy. I think Iraq's technically a democracy now. Morocco, I believe, is a constitutional democracy. Syria is technically a democracy. They have a legislature as well. Egypt, I believe, is a democracy as well.
And we've consistently undermined democracy within the region by toppling their leaders and putting it in whoever we want. So
if you are a democracy, you might get destroyed.
Yeah, exactly. So to complain that there is no democracy except Israel is just, I mean, it's something that we're responsible for that. So for us to complain about that is ridiculous.
I want to be very clear about something. So Ro Khanna spoke out recently about Ilhan Omar being banned and about Rashida Tlaib being banned. And he actually said something that was pretty telling, and it's almost like an admission of guilt. He said, we give y'all billions of dollars in aid every year. You can't just be banning Congress people. But you just, bruh, HR 1837, you just approved unlimited funding to Israel. After, like, if you voted for the HR 246, which was the resolution to condemn BDS while asserting free speech, and then maybe you voted for Ilhan's bill or resolution as well, but I don't think it was ever able to hit the floor, and didn't vote for this, I'd be a little bit more forgiving towards you. But that's not what happened.
But
you just emboldened. What?
But he literally voted for it. Like, he literally voted for HR. He voted for both of them. So.
And we both made this point time and time again. Like, y'all can keep paying attention to HR 246, but that bill was literally a distraction full of buzzwords to get you all on your feelings and get you all on your emotions, get you all distracted. You think that Netanyahu was emboldened by that? By nothing that gave any monetary incentive for him to do whatever he wanted to do? No. He was emboldened by the literal bill that said, here's all my money, or here's as much money as you want. We don't care what you do. Because it is not a coincidence that this passes 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, maybe, no, 2 weeks ago, around the same time that it's time for him to start running for, like, he's rerunning for office. The elections are coming up. Around the same time that he bans Ilhan Omar and bans Rashida Tlaib and invites other Congress people, not even a week ago? Around the same time that this bill for unlimited funding gets sent to Israel, at a really weird time. It doesn't, they do a bill every, I want to say every year, every 3 to 4 years to give funding to Israel, but it's never this much. It's usually deliberated more, actually. And very rarely does it get like almost unanimous consent, right? So, and it never is unlimited funding. That is one thing I can say. Under Obama administration, it was never unlimited funding.
Yeah.
And so all this kind of adds up after a while. And that money was really the icing on the cake for Netanyahu. Go ahead, sorry.
Yes, no, sorry. I was just gonna also add that on the same day it was the resolution 246 and HR 1837 and HR 1850, which allowed Israel to defend itself from any Palestinian terrorists, which is incredibly vague, and it isn't even something. Why are we telling Israel what they can or can't do? I mean, obviously, that should be something that's left to the international community. But for us to give them the right to defend Palestinian terrorists, and I'm assuming that as part of HR 1837, where they're able to give aid, including military aid, that they can use to fight these terrorists, and they can just deem whatever Palestinian they encounter as a terrorist and be able to defend themselves against their.
And we give money for it. Yeah. We also, in that piece of legislation, 1837, we also say we will recoup, like basically if you are attacked, quote unquote, by anti-Israeli terrorism, basically it's like super vague. It doesn't matter whose soil you're on. Basically, the United States will give you money for it. Like it's literally going out of its way. That 1837, they never said the words BDS, but that was by design. Once again, that's how Congress works. That's how they've always worked. They're not gonna put buzzwords in legislation that is controversial and they know you would disagree with. They're going to not say any buzzwords. They're going to fast track that bitch through. They say, hey, co-sponsor it. Don't we're trying to get this to a voice vote so we can save all of our asses. And Ro Khanna and the like. AOC didn't vote for this. Tulsi didn't vote for this. Ayanna Pressley didn't vote for this. Rashida Tlaib obviously didn't vote for this. Ilhan Omar obviously didn't vote for this. Jayapal did not vote for this either. She did not co-sponsor. Literally, it was only Ro Khanna, the only quote-unquote progressive in Congress who co-sponsored this. But because of how many people co-sponsored it, it went to a voice vote. Why? Because they knew that this was the one that you should have been paying attention to. That's why. Because why didn't HR 246 have that many co-sponsors then? It condemned BDS, right? Congress mostly is in Israel's pocket. Why? Because they wanted controversy. They wanted names attached to votes. They wanted you to be distracted about a resolution the same day that a bill with unlimited money got fast-tracked. And it worked, if we're being honest. So,
and I think the HR 1837, the title of it was more so focused on the Israeli-U.S. relationship. Like that was kind of the focus of the title rather than clearly stating the actual goal. Because again, the whole purpose was, one was saying we oppose the efforts to delegitimize Israel through the BDS. That was literally like the title of HRES 246 versus the other one is just like, oh, the U.S. and Israeli relationship, very vague until you actually read the legislation.
And once again, it goes, I think it must be said, all the coverage and all the Twitter chatter about HR 246, and still to this day, some people still try to bring that up. They have no idea what 1837 is. And a lot of times when they bring it up, they try to justify their overreaction to HR 247 that practically didn't do anything. Like that's what basically it did, is wagged its finger and says, we don't like BDS, but we can't do anything about it. And you as a state or as a judge can't do anything about it either. And you shouldn't. That's what that bill did. Literally nothing other than actually it could be used in courts to defend people who are currently being prosecuted or attempting to be prosecuted over BDS or being anti-BDS. But the HR 1837, half the time, if I bring it up, some people don't even remember. Like, I don't know. They're like, oh, what's that? Oh yeah, that's bad too. I agree. We should be outraged about both. Okay, so what should we be outraged about in 1837? What did it say? Uh, what you just said. Whatever you just said, that's what it said. In other words, you were more concerned about the quote unquote sexy resolution with a bunch of names attached to it that you recognize, rather than once again the bill. Like, this is the problem with politics. This is the problem with commentary. This is the problem with foreign policy. This is the problem with, hell, domestic policy as well. Like, we get caught up in Medicare for all, don't realize that the Senate bill gives way too much power to the states. Don't realize the Senate bill transitions for 4 years, but we have a perfectly good House bill that transitions in 2 years, right? Little things like that, the details, the minutia. The minutia is the stuff that can ask anybody who thought Obamacare, including Obama, like anybody who thought Obamacare was going to be at least at the bare minimum a public option, and it's obviously never became that. It actually became.
They also never, from what I've seen, covered Ilhan's resolution, HRES 496, which is affirming people's right to engage in any kind of boycott, divestment, sanctions movement.
Yeah, and I actually covered that before I even knew about HR 246. I knew about Ilhan's resolution about a week before HR 246 passed.
And I don't think Ro Khanna, last time I checked a couple of days ago, Ro Khanna still hadn't co-sponsored 496. So we should not trust Ro Khanna as co-chair of Bernie's campaign and obviously as a congressman. So.
Yeah, hell no. I mean, Ro's lost my trust. Like, he's useful for a good vote for progressive legislation. Like, when you introduce a Green New Deal or an OFF Act or a bill to stop war in Yemen, especially if a big name progressive is attached to it and created it and sponsored it, he'll vote for it. So he's useful in that capacity, but he is absolutely progressive.
He'll also co-sponsor Medicare for America, just so everyone knows too.
Oh yeah, which is a whole different conversation, but
whole different story. But
he's on that Elizabeth Warren. He's on that Elizabeth Warren. There are many paths to Medicare for all. Justice Democrat. Seem like same old Democrat to me. Just few more progressive votes for legislation that he knows will not get passed. Interesting. And my thing is, what people don't understand is people say, well, it's one vote, it's insignificant. No, because if you're voting like to pass it, that means you're not pushing back in your speeches. You're not pushing back when you're caucusing. You're enabling those establishment Democrats, and you're enabling those even the neocons when you vote for things like HR 1837, Medicare for America, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. That's the problem. It's not just the vote. It is what you do with your mandate. And for a while, Ro Khanna did have a significant mandate, but after those two big votes, and then I think once the Medicare for America vote gets out, because Sophia and I are going to be covering that as well in our Medicare for All series, it's people going to kind of realize, like, bro, are you sure you're on our team? And the answer is, sometimes. So, Maria. Sophia, have anything else you want to say about the Israel thing?
Well, this just is some election interference, I guess, whatever you want to call it. It's just interference in other countries' affairs. Very typical. Which isn't a surprise.
A foreign country interfering in another government's affairs. Well, somebody better sanction whatever country that guy President Trump is in charge of, because,
going to war. Someone should bomb us or go to war with us.
Yeah, that's how it goes, right? That's what we do. You have another country allegedly interfere, not even verifiably, but allegedly. Have the story changed 150 times. Well, we have to sanction them, and then we have to maybe consider bombing them. And if we can't bomb them because people won't consent to it, I don't know. Maybe we'll do something like pretend you bombed a Japanese tanker and blame you for it, and then get caught lying about it. You know, we're inventive. We're a very inventive country. So, but I'm sure that if somebody decided to try and take action upon the United States for Donald Trump's actions, oh my God, all hell would break loose. So, democracy. Yeah. Hey, don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification button to get all of our notifications if you like that episode of Mikasa Sukasa. You can also help continue to grow our show by donating to our Patreon and helping us hit our goal of 500 patrons. But remember, more than anything else, find your balance. Peace.